Good afternoon. One of the last sessions. I hope you will enjoy. I'm sure you will enjoy. With me on the stage, and we are talking, well, first let's announce what we are talking about. We will talk about how we can limit or reduce the environmental impact of the building industry. And with me on stage is Franziska Wörthmüller. She is the founder, co-CEO, or co-founder and CEO of Chagos. What this startup is doing, we will discuss later. And with me on stage is Ants Will from Estonia.
Yep.
Third-time founder, as we discovered behind the stage. And the startup you are running now is called Beasley. Who is living in a building? Please raise your hand. Surprisingly, nearly everyone. So we will discuss after where you are living. What I found very astonishing is that there are 177 toxic ingredients, let's say.
Yeah.
Or potentially there are 177 toxic ingredients in the materials that our buildings are constructed of. So you're living together with nearly 200 toxic ingredients. So please, why is that? Why are we doing such things? What are these things? And what is the consequence of these things?
So there are up to 177 toxins in building materials. So there could be a consequence that we are in a building, for example, our home or work environment, and we get, for example, a cough or something because there are toxins in the materials that actually affect our health. And this is so, it's so like impacting our health that I had one client actually who told me an example that he had bought an apartment for a vacation, and the first time he entered the apartment, he got an allergic shock. So because of the materials that are actually built in there. And why we do that? Most of the time because it's cheaper.
Is it a problem, a third world problem? Is it a problem here as well?
It is a problem here. And that's why the European Union, with the European taxonomy, for example, they regulated that. And all green building certifications, certain grants we have in Germany, the QNG, for example, they regulate this. And it's a very intense process today, very manual process also, to get to know whether materials are compliant with these regulations or not. And that's about our solution also, but later.
Yes, that's a good point. So what exactly are you doing then with your startup? What's the solution?
So what we're doing is we're using AI to build Europe's largest database for building materials, for sustainable building materials. So we gather basically all building materials in Europe that exist and all the toxins like each material consists of. And with that, we can say whether a material is compliant with certain regulations or not. And we can automate the whole process from 4 to 6 weeks to 1 to 3 days, which makes the whole process much more efficient and makes it easier also to build in the good materials.
Thank you, Franziska. Second question, who slept in a hotel this night? Okay, not so many. But hotels are one example, I think, where you come into play. We all know the water is running maybe, we didn't switch off the lights when we are leaving the hotel. So what exactly is Beasley doing maybe to reduce this consumption that we are causing in hotels or maybe other buildings?
Yeah, so in Beasley we focus on building automation. So we have our own digital twin-based AI-powered building automation portfolio, including the software and the hardware, and focusing on then the residential, both as the light commercial, including the hotels. And let's say if you ask anybody that does automation save energy, then let's say most of the people would agree that yes, it does, but there are two fundamental issues with building automation. So the first issue with building automation is that most of the systems are unreliable. So in case of automation, many real estate portfolio owners think that, okay, automation is a huge headache, there is something always wrong with it, somebody needs to come and solve the issues. And the second other major problem is that although building automation is known for saving energy. Only perhaps 5% of building stock globally has been automated. And why it is so is the price of it. So building automation is today mostly unaffordable for the buildings that would benefit from it. And in Beazley, what we have done is that we have developed our own platform. So Estonia is known for good IT solutions, and that platform is then focused on driving down the non-value-added overheads in the whole process of from sales perspective to installation to configuration and later on of maintaining the building, the automated building then. So by doing that, we are approximately 50% more affordable than any other provider there on the market, whether it's Jira, Schneider, Loxone, whoever. And by that, we have become in our home turf in the Baltics. We are now having the market share of approximately 60-70%. And since last year, we actually started our expansion in DACH and Poland and UK. So a few buildings here as well.
Just maybe some measures that you enable or how the buildings can then save energy by the automation? Just some examples?
So typically you will be automating your HVAC system, your lighting system, your access systems. You will be, in terms of lighting automation, you will go into daylight harvesting, so you don't need the lights on if the sun is shining and so forth. So all of these linear logic-based topics. Further, then you would go into more dynamic solution, meaning that, for example, energy price-based heating, taking into consideration the building inertias, the effectiveness of the plant rooms, and so on. So it's quite a large tech stack on its own, but if you apply it to the buildings, then you will be able to save, depending on the scope of the application, let's say 30 to 40% of the energy.
Which is quite impressive, and you mentioned that so far only 5% of the buildings are using these installations, or because of the price problem that you are tackling now, which also raises the question, like, is the industry ready for digital solutions? You are helping with that it's affordable. What is your experience? Are these brick guys already seeing the advantages of your digital solution?
So I would say there are two parts to my answer. So there's one part generally, like, where is the industry and how does the industry coming for like the builders, the construction companies, and maybe engineering companies. It's very different. So I will say something to that, and how the industry is reacting to us is kind of specific to our customer group, obviously, and to the problem itself. So the industry itself is very non-digitized, and it's not easy as a digital company to enter, but it varies when it comes to the different stakeholders and customer groups. So I would say, depending on the size actually of a company, it's harder or easier. And also for builders, for example, if it's a very straightforward use case, for example, the acquisition of real estate is a very straightforward use case, and there's a quite successful startup in that space where it's not so hard to scale and to get customers, but also there are like startups where like the process is not as easy before and you have more pioneer work to do. It's much harder. And then it's very hard to connect the different players in the industry. So, and that's very fragmented. So I would say there are definitely industry where it's easier to entry as a digital business. Specifically, second part of the answer, our business and our solution at the moment is the signs are very positive, and then we are quite quick because our customer base is are more or less smaller companies at the moment. So 10 to 500 employees. The larger we get, the longer the sales cycle, but our problem is a very specific niche problem which is existent in the market, so they need it. They can double their revenue most of the time when they use our tool, so they have an interest to do that.
Hans, what are the challenges that you are facing when rolling out your product and bring it to clients?
No, let's say the main challenge is the legacy of the industry. So you have different types of, as building automation is nothing new. I have worked in the industry and it has come from industrial automation. Then there are different KNX protocol-based or whatever type of proprietary protocol-based automation systems out there. And typically, if you're a successful integrator company, then you have already made certain technological choices previously. You have hired staff, you have trained them, you have maybe a few hundred sites that you have installed that are under your management. And now making the move from one technology to another it can be quite scary for many. No, but how we overcome that problem is that one of the Beazley promises is that we make building automation less complex or not complex at all, meaning that you don't have to be able to code or program devices, so you can scan to connect, you have different apps that installers can use. And that also means that actually we are targeting mostly as our target partners, we are targeting companies who are not automation integrators, to whom the automation has been scary, but now we make it simple and they are entering the new revenue streams actually. So let's say, as in startup life is common that if you encounter a problem, then you need to find a solution, and that's how we have changed our own go-to-market. So many of our partners didn't do any building automation before, and today are doing it left and right, so to say.
Are you already in Germany?
Yeah, we are in Germany. Yeah. We have done quite a few installations actually in the Düsseldorf, Cologne area, and as well, for example, in UK, one of our main customers is the Crown Estate, so the largest portfolio owner there. And we have our German sales lead sitting there in the front row, so we have very established and convinced about the German market. So.
But your team is in Estonia?
Yeah, so the R&D team or the technology team we have in Estonia, and originally we of course started off on our home market, so not so often that you can do that as an Estonian startup. So when and then expanding into the Baltic market and so on. So the tech team and perhaps some of the back office functions are there, but the local commercial footprint is here and growing, and we look forward to expanding here locally as well.
Franziska, you want to expand as well, and you told me...
Sure. for sure, but one step at a time. So first DACH and then other parts of Europe.
Yeah, so if we came to Germany, then you should come to Estonia.
Fair enough. I give you a call then.
Yes, we have very good contacts with the developers in Estonia. So
Perfect.
yes, match made in heaven.
We don't need the developers though, we need the construction companies and auditors more.
No, those as well, construction companies.
Okay, if you know everyone, I will call you.
Exchange
I give you a call.
after.
I give you a call and then our expansion is done.
Yes.
Perfect.
You mentioned behind the stage that you are currently trying to secure or to find investors for your business. So maybe tell us a little bit more. What are you looking for? Maybe there are still some investors here today, so use the stage, maybe.
I would say I keep it very simple. We're currently offering the opportunity for a pre-seed round, and that's it.
And that's it. So everyone who has some money available for pre-seed and a very interesting business opportunity, just talk to Franziska after. Since you are founder, and I'm very interested in how founders are founding and what's the secret, and then maybe some advice for others who want to found. So do you have a certain type of leadership that you are trying to apply or to imply in the company? How do you want to lead?
Yeah. So when it comes to advice sort of for other founders or people who aspire to found, there's like one sentence that's important, what I just want to state after, like before I say something about the culture part. So the basic thing is, even or especially if it's an impact-driven startup, I would say do the efficiency case first and look for the people, for the customer who has the biggest pain point in the whole process, and then do the impact. So that's like the major advice I would give. And when it comes to culture, for us, what we are doing is we call it sort of conscious leadership or conscious or soulful business. So for us, it's important that we see people or see business basically as something around people. So the customers are people, the investors are people, human beings, and also investors are people. So everyone around, producers, etc. The whole ecosystem is made of human beings, and so we find it very important to also face the human being and not only the position, which I find is often not so easy if you are in a, obviously money-driven world. And so we really we did that, and we have very good experiences with that, because that's a way where we get conversations to a deeper level and also have deeper connections with the ecosystem, with our stakeholders and shareholders also.
Thanks. And since you had already 2 companies, what is your secret of starting companies, growing companies, and maybe exiting companies?
No, let's say it's a very Estonian saying, but roughly translated into English as like "get on with it." So, and the reason being that actually the first company in the PropTech sphere that I started with one of my friends 17 years ago exited in 2016. From that came also the idea for establishing Bisley. So in that company, I was constantly pondering about, like, we were also doing automation business and quite successfully so, but looking at the fact that, okay, in any project that we quoted, 20% was the hardware and 80% was the overhead of engineering, of getting it working. And that idea kind of was in the back of my mind for 10 years until we then came together with another group of friends and said, okay, let's do something about it. And but no, let's say if I would be more generic, then I would just say that you need to have an acute problem that you're solving, and especially in the current, let's say, turmoil-full environment, then it needs to be something that solves problems today and fast, and then I think you're on the good path, right? So
I copy that.
Well, since we are running out of time, I think it was a good statement.
Which is crazy.
For the end. So I wish you all the best to tackle the problems, to solve the problems for us as well, because I think you contribute to a better environment where we can live first within the buildings that do not harm us, and also that consume much less energy, so that we save a lot of the resources. So thank you very much. Good luck for the business, also with the people, and see you next year, maybe at Hinterland again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dankeschön.